Dr. Neil Fox, Associate Professor of Film Practice and Pedagogy at Falmouth University, where I convene the Sound Image Cinema Lab in the School of Film and Television. The lab, as we like to call it, and its impact is what I'm going to be talking to you about on this podcast. Part 1. The Lab. The Lab is a new name for an old practice, namely the film production and co-production activity undertaken by Falmouth School of Film and Television, nominally since 2010 and in earnest since 2016. In 2015, we provided financial and resource support to Mark Jenkin's Broncos House, continuing an association with Mark, a lecturer in the school, that stretched back to his feature Happy Christmas in 2011. But more on Mark later. In 2016, I co-wrote and produced Wilderness, a feature film that formed the basis of a filmmaker in residence pilot, where a commercial, professional feature film was funded and produced within the school and crewed by students. Shot over 12 days, the film had a strong festival run and was picked up for distribution by Sparky Pictures, who released it digitally in April 2021, to good reviews from the likes of The Guardian and Mark Kermode. I wrote about this production and its consequences for media practice and education in 2018. The success of Wilderness alerted people to what we were doing at Falmouth and what we were capable of, and in its wake we ended up partnering with some fantastic producers and productions, most notably Claire Oakley's debut feature Makeup, due to its existing relationships with executive producer Mary Burke and previous iFeatures director Hope Dixon-Leach. Our experience with Makeup showed us that we could provide vital resource support in the region for commercial feature production through key funding, provision of student and graduate crew, and our network of contacts in Cornwall, invaluable to assuring a successful production. By key funding, I refer to the provision of small amounts of money that can act as completion funding, in some case ensuring a production can unlock other promised funds, or funding that allows a production to increase or access something hitherto unreachable that adds significant value to their project. In return, our students and graduates gained access to production experience that would otherwise have been beyond their reach in the form of work, set visits with Q&A sessions with heads of department, and masterclasses through pre- and post-production. When on set, for short or feature film production visits, students are accompanied by staff, ensuring that pedagogic commentary can be provided throughout the experience, and not just in the presence of heads of department. Since Wilderness, these kinds of opportunities have meant that our pedagogical ethos and offer includes them as standard in the life cycle of an undergraduate student's study with us. One significant project to mention that came in the aftermath of Wilderness is the short film Backwards. Based on a H.P. Lovecraft story, the project was created to support graduates in a meaningful way. The director, Ryan McFall, was a graduate of film at Falmouth, who had been working successfully as a director in music video and documentary for about 10 years and who was looking to move into narrative work, and was happy to work with this production and education process in place, and happy for the School of Film and Television to provide a large amount of the crew through the student and alumni bodies. An additional graduate support ambition of this project was to bring back graduates working in industry, but not necessarily at their chosen head of department role yet, and give them a paid contract as a head of department, with current students working for them in that department. This project ensured that graduates receive support and our current students receive training on the job from working professionals. The film played a number of international festivals, including the London Short Film Festival. It received the H.P. Lovecraft Award, aptly, at the Rhode Island International Film Festival, and is featured in Kier Lajanice's upcoming folk horror documentary Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched, alongside films such as Robert Eggers' The Witch and Robin Hardy's The Wicker Man. Woodlands Dark recently won the Audience Award at the 2021 South by Southwest Film Festival. Part 2. Bait. In between our involvement with Wilderness and Makeup, Cornish filmmaker Mark Jenkin was embarking on a project that in many ways was a culmination and consolidation of his work to date, most significantly since returning to shoot on celluloid, establishing his practice of post-syncing all sound and music, and starting and then rejecting his film manifesto, Silent Landscape Dancing Grain 13. The production of Bait was not very different to Broncos House in terms of the school's involvement and support. The school provided a small amount of funding, provided graduates to work on the production, brought students to set to act as extras in return for access to the production. Upon seeing an early cut of the film, the conviction was that Mark had made something remarkable, that extended his work in celluloid beyond the short and medium form and can prove to be the start of something that might one day lead him to being seen as an interesting and important British filmmaker. What happened went way beyond what anyone expected, including Mark. It was thrilling to be in Berlin for the film's world premiere. Each year we run a trip to the Berlinale with students, so we ended up having students who worked on and were in the film at its world premiere at one of the world's elite film festivals. And it was amazing to see the story of the film grow. The year that followed, with Mark travelling the world talking about the film and mentioning the School of Film and Television, then the huge British box office return for the film, nearing £500,000 before the pandemic struck. It was still playing in cinemas at that time. All culminated in Mark winning a BAFTA and mentioning the school in his speech. The success of BATE consolidated so much great work that we've been doing and threw a spotlight on it, both within the university and in the UK film industry. Word spread and we became very popular with low-budget independent producers and productions, and we are currently involved in a number of projects at varying stages of development and have co-produced with Film 4 Mark's follow-up to BATE, Ennis Main. The other thing that BATE did in terms of consolidation was allow us to make a really strong case for impact as part of the REF 2021 preparations. So I was asked to author an impact case study with BATE at the centre, naturally, and with the film acting as one of the case study's research outputs. And that's what I did. And here's what I found. Part 3. Impact. The first task when writing up the impact case study was to configure the work we had undertaken continuously, instinctively, with a desire to be engaged with and support UK film production as research. This had been done in the case of Wilderness, as that project formed part of my own research trajectory and continued work that I had done for my doctorate. As a result, assigning research questions and themes and methodologies to that body of work that would become known as the Sound Image Cinema Lab was relatively straightforward. More difficult was selecting the films that would become research outputs within the case study and the REF submission. Wilderness was an obvious one, as it had the media practice and education output tied directly to it, as was BATE, with Mark directing the film and being a member of the teaching staff. Over the course of the impact case study being written, we looked at the other outputs and decided which ones would best fit in with what we were claiming the lab was providing for the UK film industry. From here, the task was to place the work of the lab in context, in terms of its place and function in a UK film production ecosystem, showing where it filled gaps in terms of funding and resource provision that would have remained unfulfilled without it. That's what we told the external partners of the films we'd worked on and with that we'd done, and asked if they agreed. Thankfully, they did. Throughout the 5 years of the impact case study period, we had worked in significant ways with a number of production companies, producers, directors and agencies, and when we presented this research concept to them, they all agreed that that is what they had sought and received from the lab, either financially, logistically, or in terms of an equipment, labour or facility resource. From there, the impact case study was built using testimonials from these industry partners to that end. The testimonials, which also included graduates discussing how the lab had accelerated their career progression and students discussing how the lab had increased their attainment potential, provided the vital industry narrative regards impact that backed up the lab's claims as a key intervention provider for UK film industry, particularly in the micro and low budget space. An example from a film not previously mentioned was director Steve Sullivan, who said that without the lab providing a technician and a space to do a free professional grade for his film, he didn't feel he would have secured such a lucrative premiere as South by Southwest, which in turn helped secure a UK theatrical distributor for his film, Being Frank, the Chris Seavey story, about the creator of cult outsider artist Frank Sidebottom. Beyond the impact case study, which collected the disparate productions and processes into a unified narrative, the founding of the lab has given an identity to the work being done at Falmouth in film production, both internally in terms of pedagogy and research, but also externally in terms of the HE sector and the UK film industry. Lessons learned from the process of assessing impact includes considering the ways that data is captured. Some of the data in terms of the success of the lab in the ways that the case study presented, i.e. student and graduate involvement, the numbers around BATE and Wilderness, were readily available due to the personnel involved needing that data for research, or in the case of BATE, future funding and projects. However, in terms of audience and box office data for projects such as Make-up, Being Frank and the copious short films, there was a lack here, one that is being addressed in future co-productions and in-house projects to ensure that deeper impact can be measured in future. In order to fully maximise the lab's work as research, this data capture needs to be better baked in. We need to do more conferences, write more articles, and hopefully have more moments like this.
The BAFTA goes to Mark Jenkin, Kate Byers, Lynn Waite for BATE.
as we say at home. Yeah, I had a look at the to-do list at the beginning of the week, and about halfway down it said, write a BAFTA speech just in case. And I thought, how the hell did we get here? And if you pardon the clumsy segue, it was on the back of a lot of other people's hard work. So to start with, Lynn Waite and Kate Byers, the fantastic producers of the film. Our amazing cast and crew, many of whom are having BAFTA parties back home in Cornwall. I won't pick anybody out. Well, I am going to pick some individuals out, partly because they're here. But Ed Rowe, who is here, whose amazing central performance carries a lot of weight of the film. Simon Shepherd, whose fantastic performance, and I would never have met that wonderful man if it wasn't for this film. And Mary Woodvine, who, I'm going to cry, is also my partner and is brilliant in the film, as she is in life. You're going to have to feed me some information in a minute. And also just to say thanks to the BFI, who BFI Distribution, who decided that a black and white 16mm hand-processed post-synced film in Academy ratio about Cornish fishing people was a commercial proposition. I certainly will be forever thankful. Thanks also to Kodak, School of Film and Television in Falmouth, and the Festival Agency. Thank you. Miraz, as we say in Cornwall. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I look forward to connecting with you at this year's Media Practice and Education and MECCSA Symposium.